Well, if you live in Australia, you have a healthy or unhealthy obsession with property, as it seems. Everyone bloody wants 1 million properties. Everyone wants to own 1 million properties. Everyone wants to print money from properties. And what can happen is if you've been dialed into properties over the years, you might get like this case study when you're early 50s or in the 50s. If you've gone hard, you may have a collection of properties that you're collecting, and you need to potentially look at, okay, what does the next how many years look like? Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group, welcome. Hey, it's all well and good to own properties, but things can change potentially in your 50s if you've got equity, but you've still got quite a bit of debt holding those properties up. Now, the case study we're going to go through today, multiple properties, there's debt involved. At some point, the debt needs to be repaid.
Yeah. I mean, you've done well to build this property portfolio up. In your 30s and 40s, you get some equity, you buy another property. You get some equity, you buy another property. The mortgage broker's happy, you're building wealth. At some point, it might be like, well, am I actually going to pay this debt off just from cash flow? I've been doing all these interest-only loans, my equity's been built, but equity doesn't always equal cash flow. And not saying we have to, but at some point we might consider, what do we need to do? Am I going to pay this off practically? Do I have to sell one? Do I pull money out of super to pay some debts down, that kind of stuff? So this is a case study of a client that we've helped in the last 12 months. And there's probably been half a dozen or a dozen clients with similar kind of situations, different if some at 52, some at 72, but kind of a similar kind of question of going, well, on paper, I'm asset rich, but month to month, I kind of don't feel it. There's stuff going out. There's interest rates went up and they really hurt me. And then I've had some strata bills that really hurt me. You know I can't get age pension, but I feel like I'm not that rich. How do I turn this into cash flow?
Yeah, well, today on the show, we are talking retiring with multiple properties. And if you are watching on YouTube, welcome. This is the third case study in a row that we've done. Of course, if you are listening, you won't need to really watch on YouTube, but we acknowledge that there are many people, more than YouTube at the moment, who listen and don't watch. But there is the presentation on YouTube. My name is Glen James, joined by Martin McGrath from the Financial Edge Group, or Financial Edge Group, not the one and only, yeah. And for the niche people, the Ohio State University. For those who get that, let's do a show about retirement called Retire Right now.
This is a podcast that will help you plan and execute one of the biggest moments in your life. That's retirement. You'll learn how to set up your finances in a way that benefits you, your lifestyle goals, and keeps you in the know within this complex world of money and investing. Your host is Glen James, former financial advisor, author, and host of the popular Money, Money, Money podcast. Glen is joined by experts in various fields around the topic of retirement in Australia. Any advice in this podcast is of a general nature. Full details are in the show notes of this episode. You only retire once, so retire right.
Okay, this client retiring in multiple properties, their current situation, what did they walk in the door looking like?
So, as mentioned, they knew they were doing well, but a little bit lost. We're in our mid-50s. We've been accumulating all these assets. We're not ready to retire yet. We don't think we're on the right path to retire yet, but we want to get someone to kind of have a bit of a look at our situation. We've spoken to some mortgage brokers who can help us with certain things. The accountant's good at helping with some stuff. There's some buyer's agents or property agents, but we need someone to help us with the big picture and putting this all together. So in their mid-50s, both still working, earning about $220,000 combined, not quite 50-50, but kind of in that range. Can we retire at 60 or 65? What does that look like? And I kind of said early on, if there was a way I could show you that you could retire before then, would you be open to that? And they said, yes, we could retire yesterday if we could. They had accumulated their own home, which was paid off and debt-free, 8 other investment properties.
What, are we collecting them or something?
Yeah, one for everyone. The combined value, and obviously we're rounding some figures today, was around $7 million, and there were debts against those properties. there was around $3 million of debt, different loans, some cross-gearing, and some were interest only. Most of them were reverted to P&I. Some of them were more recent property purchases with higher debt or LVRs, and some were lower. But again, totality. So there's $4 million of property equity there. Month to month, property kind of cash flow was break even at best. Interest rates have, depending when you listen to this, had come down a little bit in the last year or so. Before that, it was much worse. They were going backwards by nearly $5,000 to $10,000 a month, and that was definitely hurting them. And they both had decent super balances, around $400,000 each.
And were they in run-of-the-mill retail industry funds?
One was an employer super fund that was set up through work with some insurances in there. I think the other was an industry fund.
Fascinating that someone with flipping 8 properties out of super didn't have a self-managed super fund freaking going to town again.
With more properties,
yeah. That's a shock.
Some of those are there as well, but they're this case study, not the case.
I kind of want to point out a couple of things here. And I guess we can go to the consideration page when we talk about this stuff. One of the considerations with property, like, sure, if there was no debt and you didn't mind having property, you could keep them forevermore because they'd be putting money, flushing money through everywhere. It's all good. No issues.
Yep.
That's one consideration. Another consideration is, we'll call them assets for this. One of the assets, it's old. I know that there's a retaining wall at the back of the block that needs to be done at some point. Particularly in New South Wales, if you're the lower block, you're responsible for the retaining wall, not the neighbour, crap like that. And you're like, I don't know if I can be bothered with the drama of spending 20, 30 grand on a retaining wall. So I think if there's one of the kids that's going to go first, we're going to piss that off before we have to do that. That asset there, it's never had a good tenant. We kind of did well. So there's all these soft things. If you're self-managing, you might be like, we're just over it.
Yep.
So it's, sure, buy property, hold it, never sell it. I get it. But there will come a time where you might want to offload it for free up cash flow like we're talking here.
Yep.
The pain in the ass factor, general liquidity factor, and then, of course, estate planning
considerations.
Factors. So lots of moving parts here. And I think, Martin, what I kind of want to say is when we talk about property in Australia, this might be quite a popular episode for people to listen to and watch on YouTube because it's property and everyone's got to flip an opinion loud and clear. One, we're not making anyone sell their property. Two, we're not making anyone do anything. Mm-hmm. This is just a case study based on this person wanting some more breathing space in their life.
It was a product, 100%. And their intention was, we're not going to sell any of these properties forever. But some things have gone in their life, like we all do, and we get to a point in life where we're like, well, I'm not getting any younger. The properties are doing well. They may be worth more than I thought they were going to be.
And there's this kind of this hidden thing in the background where we can not see the forest for the trees, which we'll get to. But let's get straight into the strategies that you talked with these clients about. So, just run-of-the-mill, what did you do first?
Yeah, I mean, some simple stuff first before we get into the meaty property stuff. We knew that we were going to be looking to put some extra money into super. So we double-checked and checked their super funds to make sure that before we start to put any contributions in, were they invested appropriately? Was it the right risk profile allocation? Were they paying the right fees or not? As mentioned, one was an employer fund with insurances, but they weren't with that employer anymore. And often when you leave an employer with an employer fund, sometimes your fee structures can change. So before we start loading money anywhere, we wanted to make sure that things were set up the right way. They're in the mid-50s, so they couldn't access super right away, but we wanted to make sure that those funds were ready to go when we're going to call on them at some point, which is likely going to be in the next 10 years and potentially in 5 years, pretty close to 60.
Mm. And this is the crazy thing with the 8 properties, this, $400,000 each, pretty decent super balance. But compared to maybe
The
$6 to
weight
$8
of the
million
wealth,
of
yeah.
property, we only got
Yeah,
400 each in super.
Yeah.
So sure, it could be incidental when we overlook it all, but in its own right, it's real money.
It's another property. It's worth 800. And to that point, because of their commitment to property, which had done them really well, they hadn't been putting any extra money into super.
Yeah.
In this case, they're actually, and like many of the clients we work with, were very switched on. They knew that
But they could have been saving money over the years, saving tax.
And they knew there was opportunities there.
Right.
But connecting that back to the interest rate kind of discussion and some P&I loans that their properties had turned into, they couldn't really afford to. They were earning good income, $220,000, less tax, living their own life, paying the home loan off. There wasn't $5,000 left a month or even $500 a week to start to load into super.
Yeah.
But we in this case, we turn that missed opportunity into a new opportunity.
That's right. So back to the story here.
So again, looking at their considerations, what do you want to achieve? And they basically said, we want to start having some more money per month. And we want a clear path of can we retire in 5 years? They didn't really know what they wanted to live or spend, but what they were living off at the moment, after all the mortgages, after taxes themselves, they're probably only living off 60 or 70,000.
Geez, for that much wealth, they were living tight.
There just wasn't enough to go around. They were building wealth on paper, but they weren't enjoying it. So what we did in that situation, what we do with clients like this that we help is we just start to put some of these numbers back into a table and start to map it out. And jumping ahead after some meetings, they're like, we're on board. We know we need to start selling some. Let's start to cash in some of our chips. And we mapped out a strategy that over the next 3 years, which we'll show those numbers for people, we were going to start to sell a property every year.
Yeah. Okay. So you weren't saying we're liquidating all properties, because if you've got 8 properties, you like property as an investment for whatever reasons.
And as a financial advisor, we're on board with the property, I suppose, which is another slight tangent of in putting some clear lines of distinctions are financial advisors don't have a real estate agent license. It's not my job to tell you to sell 10 Smith Street or 10 Brown Street or anything like that. But quality financial advisors and anyone connected to the Retire Right Network can give you cash flow planning, strategic planning, tax planning. Like you said before, the clients knew more about the properties than I did. They were, a number on a page and some numbers around it. Some looked like they were getting high rentals, some were low, some had high costs, some had low cost.
And they're going to know the dog in the portfolio.
Okay, that one looks really good. It looks really good, but it hasn't been improved for 25 years.
And we don't want to spend 30 grand on that.
It's going to need a massive outlay soon. So I was like, okay, we're going to go, which are the keeps, we've got some family member in that one, that's not going to be sold. This one, we'd be happy to get rid of that yesterday kind of thing. So that was really driven as a collaborative kind of discussion. I couldn't have given our advice without having that information, and vice versa. That allows us to kind of map out some scenarios.
So based on like this, property A worth 1.1 has the largest capital gain. It's being sold first, and the 300K gain is going to be completely offset by putting 150K each into super.
Correct.
As a carry forward.
Yep. So
talk to us about the carry forward for those who are new.
Yeah, clarifying that. They had some properties with other bigger gains, but they were decided they weren't one of the ones to be sold. So there was 3 to be sold. This was out of the biggest group, A, the largest value, but also B, the biggest gross capital gain of $300,000. And because they owned for more than 12 months, that got discounted to $150,000. So they would have had to declare on their tax returns $75,000 each as extra taxable income. If they did nothing, they probably would have got hit with around a $30,000 tax bill each. But because their super balances were below $500,000, because they hadn't been putting in much extra into super for the last few years, they could each contribute $75,000 each to super, and that completely offset the $75,000 that they had to declare from the capital gain.
And then I guess another way to offset capital gains, and I don't know if you're going to go there later, is to not have an income. That will help.
That will definitely help.
But then what we've got here, the following years, sell property B and C And okay, so you've got 900K each net. So are you just doing that for these numbers? So sure, it might go for 950 and we've got to flick the agent 20 grand or pretty up the bride before the sale.
There's some very round figures. Nothing in life always ends in a 000, but for simplicity, for even working with these clients, but obviously for today's presentation and making this information as broad as possible, for simplicity, yes, if you're going to sell a property worth 900,000, are you going to get 900,000 in the bank? No. So these properties are worth 935 or 937, listed for that, accept an offer 925, pay some solicitors' fees, pay some bank fees, pay what you might end up with 902, you might end up with 895.
You might go to an auction or whatever and you end up with 950.
It's a good problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a good problem to have.
That's a share worth X amount, you can sell it and you get most of that back. A property worth X amount, it's going to take 6, 8, 12 weeks to sell and settle. And are we going to get the exact value on the spreadsheet on day one? We know we're not. We've done this often enough that we're going to undershoot those values or round them down or take 5% off of what those costs are going to be on the way out. Because we picked that property A to be sold first with the gain so we could use up all their catch-up or carry-forward contributions.
Yes. Now, this is a diagram that people won't see if they're driving, but it basically is the next 3 financial years.
Yeah. So at the moment, their assets outside of the home is $7.5 million. I think actually on that cover sheet we might have said 7. So $7.5 million is what it was. Loans are $3 million, super 800. So their net retirement assets are 5.3. That's very healthy.
Yeah.
But they can't touch their super because they're below 60, so that 800 is kind of off the table to now. The other assets are only, and they're break even at best. The numbers are actually minus 3,000 a year. That's because the net rental yield was around 3%, but they're a bit under, and the interest on that $3 million, call that 6%. That's 180, and they had some P&I on some of them. So they're actually they were getting, 220 grand income every year in and 220 grand of costs going out. So there wasn't a lot of cash flow there.
They're multi-millionaire on paper.
But month-to-month cash flow.
Yeah.
And that's where they knew that we're doing it right here, but at the end of the bank account balance at the end of the month, we can't afford that trip to Europe. So what we did is we sold the first property within 6 months and that settled. So their assets went down. They had less in property.
Yep.
And that's okay. So the assets went from 7.5 down to 6.4. They no longer had this property worth 1.1. 150 of that went into super. So super went up by 150. And the other remainder, 950 that was left, went to pay down loans. Obviously, the loan that was attached to that property got paid off first. And then we had the other money. We got to pick which other loans to pay off. And again, for simplicity, we've done rounding here. But those decisions are key. There might be one with a higher interest rate. There might be or we're going to keep that one forever. We'll pay that one off. If your family member is living in that, we'll pay that one off next. So, but their debt went from $3 million effectively down to $2 million.
Yeah.
Their rental income went down from 218 to 186. So they had 40 grand of less rent coming in, but they had $70,000 of less loan repayments going out. What that meant was in the first 12 months, basically they went from being negative $3 grand a year to positive 34, around a $38,000 cash flow improvement. So it went from kind of break-even every month to $3 grand a month in the bank account.
Yeah, so they can actually feel like they're not strangled by their cash flow every month.
And they go, well, do we pay down debt with that? I'm like, well, you can, but maybe you start living a little.
Yeah.
The tax man's going to want a bit of that cut, which we'll get back to later. But you start living a little. Maybe you can afford that 10 grand holiday that you haven't done for a few years.
Yeah, so we'll leave that up for a couple of seconds. But for the people listening, over the next 3 years, we're selling 3 properties by the end of
2028, the end of 3
with the
years.
third property, they've got 5 properties left, but an extra $110 gross.
$110,000 gross a year.
Just for cash flow.
Yeah.
Sure, take half tax off, there's an extra grand a week.
Yeah.
And they're still worth $5 million.
Yeah, again, some rounding here, but yes. So rental income is going to go from 220 down to like 140, but your loan repayments are going from 220 down to 50 or 60. That's crazy cash flow improvement.
That's the common theme. The more complexity, more moving parts, more complexity, potentially more of a runway needed pre-retirement.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to get to the point where, because they're early 50s. What if there is a medical event or something changes mid-50s, they didn't have income insurance or whatever, they're living on the line with so much wealth. We don't want to have to fire sale a property.
Or three tenants move out all at once and all of a sudden the cash flow going backwards by X amount per, or one of them loses a job. This was, again, wealthy on paper, but they didn't feel wealthy in that cash flow side of things.
Yeah, so let's look at some of the tangible advice outcomes just to recap. Within 6 months from break even to having an extra, $3,000 gross a month.
Yeah.
Awesome. What a feeling.
And that peace of mind. And they're about, they've been working with us now for probably 6 or 9 months. And I had a chat with them a few weeks ago. They're at that point now. It's settled. They're like, oh my God, we feel rich now.
But also what's actually happening over the next 3 years that no one notices or feels until you do, you're de-risking. So you're de-risking from the debt, but you're also de-risking from someone slipping over in one of those properties, you getting sued, and people think, yeah, right, I'll tell you later after the episode, I don't want to get into too much detail, someone I know had multiple investment properties, literally someone's mum was visiting, the tenant's mum was visiting, slipped on the back deck, so timber deck, it was raining, sued the insurance, had public liability as part of the insurance, sued that. Insurance company turned around and went, nah, we're sending out freaking Hiroshio from CSI. They didn't use non-slip paint
on the deck.
So the insurance company didn't come. Anyway.
Wow.
It was a debacle.
Yeah.
And when I say passing comments like de-risking because less chance, debt's gone, less inherent risk, less properties that people can slip over. This stuff happens.
Yeah. Interest rate risk,
land
tax, which is the topic of discussion around Australia at the moment as well.
All the stuff. So I think it's, just wanted to make that note. What do we got here?
As we mentioned, by the end of the 3 years, the debts on the properties, I think they're still at a few $100,000, but I'd say close to minimal. And cash flow drastically improved. And the peace of mind, I suppose, by this process, and again, this is a scenario that's happening, is we're not at the end of the 3 years yet, but the energy around going, geez, we've noticed that cash flow already, but we're excited about the path we're on.
Yeah.
And again, jumping ahead, they're now going to make some decisions and probably not work to 60 because they kind of see that. They've got a clear path, whereas before they didn't have a path.
And that's kind of one of the soft benefits when I talked before, because I've just put the last 2 points here. I just talked about it there, how it wasn't an accident on the slide, but the last 2 points come at once. Yeah. The forest from the trees comment, we're in our early 50s, we're going to retire at 60. We think we can do it by 60. It's like, well, piss off 2 or 3 of the properties, retire tomorrow.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out. And that's where it's like, oh, we can actually retire now. We've done well. We've paid a bit of tax along the way. Yep. We've optimized the situation, and that's okay.
Yeah. But to the point, we showed them more than one scenario. It could have been, in this situation, we're selling them over 3 years. They could have sold all 3 in 1 year.
Yeah.
And accelerated that earlier. Now they collectively decided to spread the risk over 3 years and pay less capital gains, et cetera, but it could have been, we're happy to pay an extra $60,000 in tax and retire in 6 months. In this case, I go, well, 3 years, no, I still want to finish that project, don't work forever, but I'm happy to commit to another 2 years. So they're going to retire at the age of 58. And at that point, often I say, what's a retirement age? Well, there is no retirement age in Australia. There are rules around when you can access some government age pension. There are some rules around when you can access your super, but there's no actually set retirement age. You can retire when you wish. So they're going to retire at the age of 58. And again, that's going to line up well close to that 3rd year that they're not going to have a full year of employment income. So the capital gain will be less. It means they can put more into super to reduce the tax on that capital gain as well because they'll have less work contributions. They can put in more personal contributions, and they're just going to live off the net rent.
You see, it's and you fast forward to 2030, they're going to have so much money.
A couple of years later, the door will open. They'll be 60 at that point in time. They'll have, even without much extra into super, they'll have $1.2 million in super.
Yeah, and I think what I've seen here, and you see it a lot with a lot of property investors, you know, living on the line. So you had all that money. Cash flow was basically in negative each year. You've got actually a huge liquidity problem in your life, because what if something came up, a medical thing came up, or what if it's like, you know what, we've just had an illness in the family, we want to pause, take 3 months off, go to Europe, holiday. You don't have the money.
Yeah.
It's all tied up in illiquid assets. So as much as I want people to invest however they choose, ethically and legally, whether it's property, whether it's shares, whether it's whatever, just don't live on the line, because you want to change before you have to, and you don't want to be in a position where it's like, gosh, we need to come up with $100,000 for X.
Fire sale.
And it's like, all right, agent, got to sell that property. Yeah, just get what you can for it.
Yeah.
And it could be at the wrong strategic time.
Yeah, or the bank defaults and...
Yeah, or you could have had a big bonus from work that year and you'd spend it, but just push your tax rate up when it comes to sell. And
having a plan, I think, is key. And in this case, in fact, they didn't have adequate insurances.
Right.
But if someone did, and if they saw an insurance specialist, or we know a quality one connected to the show,
Sky Wealth.
If they walked in and said, hey, I've got $3 million of debt here, and you're going to need some pretty hefty income protection, definitely, and life and TPD and those kind of things.
Yeah.
If you walk back in a few years later and go, oh, I'm debt free and I've got $4 or $5 million in retirement assets, you probably don't need as much insurances, perhaps no insurances. So the flow-on effect of you're carrying more risk, but then you've got more cost around that, because you are taking that risk. Either without the insurances, that's a lot of risk, but even with the insurances, it's still risk, but then you're paying for that as well. So,
Look, we'll take a break. When we get back, I'm going to ask Martin how much he charged these people to crunch some numbers.
Valuable advice.
We'll be back right after this.
If you're after personal financial advice, don't get it from a podcast. If you would like help based on your own personal situation, head over to retireright.com.au, click Get Help, and we'd be happy to introduce you to one of our trusted professionals. Our panel of vetted financial advisors and mortgage brokers work with people all over Australia, so they can connect with you wherever you are. That's retireright.com.au and click Get Help.
Okay, we're back. Now, before we get into the cost of Martin's advice, if you are really interested in property, you may or may not know that my business, who runs the Retire Right podcast, the Money, Money, Money podcast, we've actually got a podcast called This Is Property. It's a channel on YouTube as well that we've just started to grow, and the podcast has been around for 5 or more years. And that's hosted by John Pigeon, who's a property coach, buyer's advocate. He started the podcast with me, the main podcast, back in 2018. I trust him explicitly. And he's joined by his co-host, Rach Kroon from Sphere Home Loans, one of our show supporters on the main show. So if you are really interested in property, maybe check out the This Is Property podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Okay, we're back. You might be thinking, that's all well and good. How much do we pay someone like Martin? Again, this is at the time of him doing this advice for this client. If you call him and he quotes you more than this, it's because you might have a more complex situation, or his prices may just have increased and you could be listening to this in 3 years' time after 2025, but this is just a here and now. So what did you charge up front?
So the way that we work and many advisors work, there's an initial engagement that kind of covers the first period of time, and typically that's 2 to 3 months. We had 2 to 3 meetings during that period of time, and scenarios and projections, etc. The cost for that was $13,400.
Yeah.
Payable in installments over those 3 months. And at that point in time, we hadn't sold a property yet.
They were living on the line.
We tweaked a bit with their super, but we hadn't put anything. Were they $13,000 better after those 3 months? In this case, they weren't. What they were is intangibly, they had a clear plan that we could execute in the following 6 months and the following few years, and they had some direction around that.
I remember someone writing in once and they went to an advisor for a quote to get some advice and they had 5 properties.
Yeah, okay.
And they whinged with me because I sent them to an advisor and they quoted less than you and they were whinging. I'm like, you got over $3 million worth of assets and you want advice. This stuff takes time. It could cost you 10 grand.
Yeah.
Like, again, you don't have to do it, but if you want a professional, you may have to pay a professional.
Pay for that.
I went and had an annual photography session at the special hospital the other day.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't call Martin to come and put a hose somewhere with a camera in it.
DIY for you, yeah.
Yeah, like I had to pay a professional too much information, move on. But yeah, so it's part of the deal.
100%. Is there a cost involved? Yes. Is there a tangible value in the future? Yes. But sometimes, you know, you walk in, you pay $1 and you walk out with $2. In this case, we didn't save them $13,000 straight away, but over the following 6 months and since then, we definitely have. But importantly, they had a clear plan about where they were going and how they were going to get there. But and clearly, as evidence or seen, there's a lot of numbers and calculations.
Yeah, and that spreadsheet and the timing and the certainty.
And for today, we've kind of shown what the agreed plan was. But I think in this case, we kind of put together 3 different scenarios. You could sell these ones earlier instead, or you spread it over 7 years rather than 3 years. So there's no right or wrong decision with that, but that's what you're paying for as part of that advice and putting all that kind of information together. But we quoted them what that fee was going to look like early in the process, so they knew.
Yep.
It's paid installments. A decent amount of this was paid personally, even though their cash flow month to month wasn't great. They had some offset accounts and access to money, etc. I think we did actually in this case take a portion out of their super fund, maybe 30% out of super, and the other 70% was paid personally. But again, a large portion of that is tax advice and cash flow advice. So the portion that they paid personally, they're going to be able to claim back on their tax return as well.
Now, over the years, in this case, they opted to have an ongoing relationship with you over the next few years to, you know, walk through this strategy and the execution.
Yep.
You've got on the screen there, it was about $16,000 per year.
Correct.
Now, that's paid monthly.
That is paid monthly.
If I pay up front, do I get a discount?
I'll give you a free coffee.
All right. Woo!
Yep.
Let's go.
So it's paid.
Not a free coffee, it's $16,000 coffee.
Yeah, well, if you don't pay up front, you don't get the coffee.
Well,
so there you go. So $16,000, that is split. A portion of that's paid out as super. The other portion is paid personally. Why personally? Because a large portion, I think in this case, most of that ongoing fee is tax deductible. There's clearly a lot of cash tax planning advice. And so I think they're paying on $1,000 a month personally. As best as that original plan is, and it's great because we put it together, it's not going to be perfect. We're going to tweak it and change it. And we're going to sell it for this, but in fact, we got 30 grand less. What numbers do we adjust or not? Martin, I now got a pay rise and my super contributions are going to be up because of that bonus. Do I still put as much in as super or not? Because of the catch-up contribution, all those kind of things. So that's what's covered as part of those advice is that we need to change and fine-tune those extra 5%. Plus also, they wanted to make sure this was done right and being held accountable too. And okay, we've done that one. It's a big move. And actually not in this scenario, but a different scenario like this that we've helped someone else with. We were going to sell property B, but all of a sudden they got a phone call, hey, you know the other one said we're definitely not going to sell. Well, our family member's going to move out now and can we switch it to that one and sell that one instead of this one?
Right.
Yes, you can. Let me go and check the figures. The capital gain on that one's more.
Yeah, here's
but it's
the
worth
outcome.
less, so let's adjust the plan.
Yeah.
And if they weren't on an ongoing relationship and called me 9 months later or 18 months later and said, oh, can we do this? Legally, I can't give that advice just on a phone call. I'd need to do a new piece of advice for them, and that would be a new upfront cost, which would have cost a lot more than just continue on the ongoing service.
Just on that, for those playing at home in the background, if you've got an ongoing relationship with a client and someone calls and there is some advice that is not substantially, materially different, you can effectively give them advice, and in the background, as the professional, you can do what they call a record of advice.
And it's covered by the fee they're paying.
Yes. So you can give an ROA in this world.
Yep.
That, they called, they wanted to sell the property D, not property B.
Yeah.
Not a huge material difference. They were worth about the same.
But therefore, we'll do 40 grand contribution, not a 20 grand contribution.
So that is where you don't have to charge them another $5,000 to engage them to do a full advice document, because it's still following the initial advice that they paid for.
Yep.
So that's the thing with the ongoing relationship when it is needed. It's not needed all the time, because a lot of people will say, I want a pay once off and then just check in every couple of years. You may find, my friends, that in a couple of years, depending on the organisation, they're not going to give you a 2-hour phone consult and give you an ROA. I wouldn't do it on my licence.
No.
I'd want to do full advice, because I haven't met with you and I don't know your current situation.
I don't know if 6 months ago you set up another super fund to put money into there. I don't know if your income's more or less now. And things, 100%. Legally, we're just not allowed to. Practically, if you're paying an ongoing fee, I need to be across your situation as it changes. If you're not, well, I'm not across your situation. And then, again, it's just about that access too. If someone's an ongoing client, well, they are obviously a priority for me, because that's our relationship. If someone comes back to me, I'm happy to help them. Might be like, hey, I don't have space for a new client again for 6 weeks, so you're going to have to wait 6 weeks for that phone call. Yes, I'm happy.
Yep.
I'm happy to pay for the advice again. Not a problem that you can, but I'm probably actually can't give you the advice now for 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Whereas an ongoing client, I can give you that answer this afternoon and send you that document tomorrow, kind of thing.
And that's it. Hate the game, not the player. That's the legislation with how that works.
That's how it have to work. And often I did a video many years ago, like the value of that 2-minute phone call.
Yeah.
An ongoing relationship, pick up the phone. Let's just ask Martin, does it really matter if we pay that loan off instead of this loan? Yeah, that matters a lot. Actually tell your mortgage broker to, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Now, have I got them a high super fund return? No, I haven't. But little things like that might have turned that loan to being non-deductible versus deductible, or it was a call the other day with someone, I can't remember what it was. Like, oh, I got a bonus. Should I roll all that into super? My other co-worker's going to put all of his into super. I go, no, you've maximised yours because we did that. Okay, so that doesn't apply to me? No, it doesn't apply to you. Oh, cool, I'm glad I called you because the payroll lady said to do it. No, that you would end up paying 47% of tax on that. Take that as a wage, you're going to pay less tax. Those kind of things.
Yeah, payroll ladies, they're lovely, but we don't take strategic advice from...
They don't know your whole circumstances. They don't need to. You're paying a financial advisor to be across your whole circumstances and give you that advice.
Well, as I dropped headphones under this desk, caught in my Birkenstocks as I put them on at the end of the podcast, ready to get up and have a porto.
Wrap up.
Any final comments or words?
No, I mean, hopefully people found value in this, and people might think, well, why would you go to a financial planner? They just do super and shares. No, financial planners can give strategic advice, and that's what this is. Don't go to a financial planner to say, should I sell property A or B based upon its rental yield? Speak to a property expert, and obviously John Pigeon and the relationship here can give you that specific property advice. But if it's big picture planning, a financial advisor can add. And the other theme, hopefully people picked up today, is life is maybe about accumulating or picking up chips and building assets. And yes, in your 20s, 30s and 40s, you want to build assets. But at some point in life, you deserve to cash in some of those chips and enjoy it. And yes, this person's worth $5 million net assets on paper, but they're not going to clear $3 million of debt. They'd probably have to work and rent through the age of
that debt's not going anywhere. Let's call it and start cleaning it up and enjoying life and de-risking.
And people go, well, I'll wait till I stop working to clear the debt. Well, these people and many others feel in a trap of, well, I have to keep working to pay the debt, so therefore I can't sell them. If you sell them, there's some ways to put money into super to reduce or eliminate the tax. And even if not, even if you have to pay a 20, 50 grand tax bill, that's okay. It's okay to pay some tax. It means you've done well. It means you made a profit. Ideally plan around that, but it's okay to sell a property today and pay tax versus holding it for 6 years,
Yeah.
just to try and save 20 grand, you can probably afford to pay the 50 grand today.
And I think we didn't really go there, but we'll take it as read that in the background, if they've got family, it could be just, we're not living forever. Sure, they love property. They're keeping 5 of the bastards.
Yeah,
We're now getting some liquidity in the joint estate.
Yeah.
Some estate planning can happen. Then probably never going to be eligible for Centrelink, but it could be time if they wanted to do some gifting to adult children or your favourite retirement podcast host, Glen or Martin. Well, you're probably not legally allowed to take a gift.
No.
I can.
I can take professional fees, but
I can take a gift. But I can see Ryan is walking into the studio now on the camera with our Porto for lunch. But yeah, we'll leave it there. My name is Glen James. Thanks so much for watching today. Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group. We'll be back next week. Bye.
See ya.
Any advice is general financial advice only, which does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Because of that, you should consider if the advice is appropriate to you and your needs before acting on the information. If you do choose to buy a financial product, read the Product Disclosure Statement, PDS, and Target Market Determination, TMD, and obtain appropriate financial advice tailored to your needs. Simo Interactive, Pty Ltd, and Glen James are authorised representatives of Money Sherpa Pty Ltd, which holds Financial Services Licence 451289. Martin McGrath, Financial Edge Group, and its employed financial advisors are authorised representatives of Synchron Advice, AFSL 243313. Opinions or comments from any guest on the podcast are theirs, and not those of the hosts, the publisher, or their respective licence holders.